I can't tell for certain, but well,
spotting though. Yeah.
What is it?
It's just some plastic.
Ah.
sorry for the false alarm.
No, good spotting. That's what I want you to do. Used to be that when we started this, it's like, okay, you know, Highway 41 is the cutoff. You know, that's pretty much as far north as we were seeing them. And this year in particular, we've been getting many reports that they're crossing I-75. So they've moved up a county within about a year and a half, 2 years or so. It's kind of a quick move. You know, you get them and you put them in, it could be like a 40-pound snake, and it's like, oh, easy, and then you got to take it out, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
no adrenaline left, it's like, wait a minute.
Your legs are all shaking.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Let's get them.
Let's do it. Go catching pythons. I hunt pythons pretty much every day or night, depending on the weather. I like to call them Florida Burmese pythons because they've been here for generations now. Probably more than 10 generations of snakes are breeding out here since the mid-70s. They've decimated the animal population. They basically eat anything that moves out here, everything from rats to birds to alligators and deer. There's so many of them out here that something has to be done. We're the ones that put them out here. We're the ones that have to try to do something to get them under control. It's important to have all the other snakes, including the venomous ones. It's only the pythons that we're going after here. The only hope they have is for us to remove the pythons. I believe in making a difference with each one I catch. I love making that difference. I hate having to euthanize them, but unfortunately, the reason we have this problem is that they didn't have good homes to start with. In order to try to fix this problem, we just have to eliminate them. You know, they have to be removed from the environment. They don't belong here. That's the worst part of the job, is that part. I've always loved snakes since I was a little kid and have a soft spot in my heart for snakes. So you have to go into it positively and you have to continue. Everyone makes a difference. Every single one makes a difference.
There's people like me scattered all over the earth. And, you know, there's a me in every neighborhood. We're not trying to save the world, but by saving just a little part of it, that's a start.
Why do you have two hats on?
You said one trip. Yeah, this is also the start of our big climate change endeavor as we travel to all 50 states to try and give the people something authentic and relatable.
Can you get the seatbelt?
And in the meantime, I'm gonna work on my seatbelt dexterity.
Here we go.
Oh man!
Nathan's gonna put it to video and produce it and make it cool.
From early on, Nate was always just the one with the camera. it seemed like any chance we got, we were filming something.
Hi, I'm Cody, and I can do many super things. First off, I can turn invisible.
Come on. What were we thinking?
I'm Nathan Murray. And I'm Cody PFISTER. And this is our Ulysses project. Oh,
my older brother had the camera around the house, and I did everything that he did. And I picked up the camera myself and started filming with my friends. And we had a great time.
I think we owe a lot to our parents and just how they raised us, let us really explore our sense of adventure and run around in the neighborhoods and the creeks of friends' backyards. And I think that definitely had a huge role to play in what ultimately became our passion for the environment and climate change.
I was very curious about how the environment is changing, and I wanted to find a way to use my video production skills to look into these issues. To me, it felt very natural to get a camera to answer those questions for myself.
Nate and I were both at separate colleges in Ohio, and one day I was walking back from class, and I noticed this kind of sketchy van sitting out front, and I noticed Nate was at my apartment dropping off some skateboards. He told me that was his van and asked if I wanted to go check it out, so we're sitting in these back captain's chairs, had them swiveled around, and next thing you know, he drops it on me that he has this grand idea of traveling to all 50 states to film an environmental documentary. I don't think I hesitated a bit and said I'm down. I don't even know if he invited me at that time.
Open door on the right there.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, we both just graduated and felt like, you know, we needed to, well, we wanted to travel a little bit, but we also wanted to do something bigger than ourselves and try and communicate these issues.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's really wonderful.
You all ever think about going in meteorology?
You know, the thought has crossed my mind. I took a lot of atmospheric science classes in my curriculum, and I thoroughly
You did?
enjoyed them. Yeah, I really did. I really, really did. Those are some of my favorite, you know, textbooks to read. You know, I didn't care too much for the calculus textbooks or the organic chemistry, but meteorology and, you know, climate studies.
You gotta really be into it to be a meteorologist. I mean, you just like myself. I didn't go into it. Back then, I grew up poor and I couldn't afford it. And my father was sick for years, down flabby his back, and I had a right rough life coming up. But I always had urge to watch the weather, and I just wish now I could afford to went to college to get a degree in meteorology. I'd have been one, no question about it. That man wrote there on that paper, said I had a heart and mind of a meteorologist.
There's no denying that. What got you first interested in the weather? I mean, you know, you just said you'd always been interested, but was there
When
one
I
thing?
was old enough to watch the weather, 6 years old, I'd be walking along somewhere with my daddy in the wintertime, and I said, "Is it gonna snow, Daddy?" And he said, "I don't think it is, son." I reckon he didn't want to lie to me. And I'd go off somewhere and cry. That's how bad I want to see it snow. And when it snows right now, I mean, I just get all fascinated. A thunderstorm, whenever it comes a big thunderstorm, me and her hit her to the back bedroom and watch it. We open the
It's
window.
very interesting.
We sit there and watch it till it's all gone. I'll show you how this works.
Okay.
Now this is 80 inches in diameter here. All right. This tube here is 2 53/100 inches in diameter, which is 1/10 the area of 8 inches diameter. And the rainfall goes in here, through here, is magnified 10 times. Means it's 10 times in here, and that way you can get into the 1/100th of an inch. And I'll show you. This here is what you call a thermograph, and it keeps the temperature continuously. See, I keep my temperature from midnight to midnight like the weather service does. So you see right here, we're 70 at midnight. And that's the lowest it got all night. I hate to cut it down though, but I mean, if that thing would happen to fall, cross that power line. Or
Yeah, it would take that with it.
yeah, I mean, you know, this way, it'd probably hit my weather instrument. That thing
It
is
probably
up
hit this house.
that thing is up in the air. But I made this myself here on the average winter temperature. See, we started in the 60s here. See how it went up here? So that was in the 70s, yeah. We had a warm spell in the 70s. But you can see it's been a definite climb, though. You can see it. See, I had two of the warmest years on record right here. And that was in 2011 and 2016. It dropped off here, but what I'm talking about, back here, you didn't see nothing like this. See what I'm talking about?
So those are average annual temperature readings since
Right.
when did they start?
1960. I mean, the temperature, it's definite. You can see a little thing I made up there on the computer. See how the temperature's gradually going on up?
Yeah. So what would you say to anyone out there that is in denial of our changing climate and the rising temperatures?
They know what to talk about. Whole thing I can say. I just don't pay no attention to people like that because I got the records here. And the weatherman comes in from Blacksburg. He totally agrees with me. He said it's definitely warming up. So it's your nighttime temperatures that's really breaking the records. Not too many years back, if I had a low temperature here of 70, I thought, boy, that's really unusual. And now I've had them this summer just off and on. Some don't even get down to 70 some nights. So that's just, that pulls your average temperature up, you see.
Yes.
What is that on your camera? I'm in the camera club.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I wish I could be around long to see it. I mean, I don't want to see it wiped out, but I got enough curiosity. I'd like to be around another 100 years to see what's really going to happen, you know, as far as the weather and everything.
Well, you've made a phenomenal contribution to the weather industry in your time here, so
Yeah,
you should be very, very proud of that, and you've helped a lot of people understand
appreciate
it from your first-hand account. So,
appreciate it.
um,
Yeah, it's just a hobby I got. It's just like somebody loves to fish all the time. Somebody likes to collect coins all the time. I just love it. Watch them maniacs on the road. They out there.
we'll look out for them.
We forgot to talk about that.
Easy.
Camping has been awesome. There's nothing more relaxing than just being out in the wilderness and that's so cliche. Living in a van so far has been pretty interesting. Honestly, like, not that bad. It's been pretty comfortable. The way we kind of retrofitted everything has been very accommodating for two people. Our beds are actually super comfy. It's just a matter of getting used to being in close quarters with one other person. It's kind of nice because it forces you to be like very in touch with like the items you have, and you learn real quick what you need and what you don't need. And it kind of puts a lot of things into perspective back home. It's like, I have so much crap that I just don't ever use or need, and like this helps you really focus in on like the bare essentials.
Quit college when I had a professor tell me I had to take a final on June 1st. Well, June 1st was when the beaches opened. You don't miss a beach opening. Sometimes you could catch $5,000 worth of shrimp in one day, and I tried to explain that to the professor, and he just couldn't get it. And I finally said, I have the answer to the question. I don't need to be here on June 1st because I just quit. And that was the last of my college days. From then on, I was running a shrimp boat. When shrimping started going down, placed it with snapper boats. So then I got into clam farming with the University of Georgia. And we're always looking for something to do that's sustainable. There are some things changing. We're getting higher tides than we used to. And even though maybe the water's only supposedly gone up a half an inch or something in the last 10, 20 years, the amplitudes of things are changing. And we've got fish, and it's documented, they're moving north. And it doesn't seem like much, but cumulatively, it's a lot. So you've got management implications, because you've got southern species that are showing up north that they never saw before. I'm concerned that eventually we're going to have some serious issues with ocean acidification. So we're trying to get some baseline monitoring on what's going on now so we can see where we're going in the future. And hopefully, you know, the managers and the policymakers can start changing and making policies that help mitigate it, or even ideally start reversing it. Under the current policies, I don't see it getting any better. A lot of people, they want to do the right thing, but if you can't tie it into something that they can feel or see or they want. For instance, when I go to Atlanta and I'm talking to people and said, you like these oysters and you like these clams? You need to be particular about what you're putting in your yard, because it all flows down the storm drain, then it gets in the creek, then it gets in the river, then it's right here. And whether it's non-point source pollution or putting extra CO2 in the atmosphere that causes ocean acidification, it all does the same thing. It degrades the water quality, it degrades the environment, and it costs people access to things that they really want, whether it be a food or recreation or healthy environment so wildlife can travel and live. It's all tied together. It's hard, you can't just tease out one thing. It's all tied together.
I mean, this is the kind of road you get around here where you're driving along and you run over fish.
No kidding.
I mean, you know, yeah, Spartina grows, whoops, it's getting real wet here. Spartina grows between low tide and high tide, okay, right? So you got Spartina growing here. And again, you know, it didn't used to be this way. When this has all happened within the last 6 or 7 years, 7, 8 years. You know, if you walk around anywhere around here, you start seeing clear examples of where the ecosystems have changed from, you know, right over there, they got clover and regular grass, and down here, you know, 20 meters away, sure, is a tidal ecosystem. Yeah. You walk into these people's front lawns and they have marsh grass growing in their front lawns, so you know that their front lawn's becoming a wetland. Yeah.
So if you go out in these upper creeks and tributaries, you see these areas of all these standing dead trees within marsh areas. We're calling these standing dead trees ghost forests. They're sensitive to salt water, so when they're exposed, they tend to die off. And then when you have big events, like a big storm, like Hurricane Sandy, you get even bigger die-offs of these areas of trees. Sea level has been rising in New Jersey over several thousands of years. So this process has been occurring that whole time, where you have this shift in ecosystems. The difference now is that sea level is rising at much faster rates. You're losing these forests much more rapidly, and compared to several thousand years ago when there weren't humans, now these ecosystems can't just shift backwards. They run into human developments and agricultural lands.
Actually, all the farmers down there, they talk about before and after Sandy. Their whole concept of how they farm has totally changed post-Sandy. So storms and tides, groundwater extraction, all of these sort of culminate in this phenomenon called saltwater intrusion, which is the landward movement of sea salts. And we see this in forests, and we see this these migrating marshes into uplands, and then we actually see farmlands also turning into marshes. We lost 1% of the agricultural land in 8 years. So it's pretty dramatic what's been happening. And this is the information the farmers want. You know, when I'm out there, they're like, Kate, I want a map of my field, and I want you to show me where it's gonna be in 5 years so that I can start making decisions now. And that's what I think is really critical, is making sure we know where it's gonna happen and then what are the strategies. Because that line of saltwater intrusion is only gonna keep moving forward across the landscape.
You can see all that mud right there, but that mud keeps going down meters upon meters, and that's all very organic rich sediment. So it's essentially carbon dioxide that's transformed into a solid form that's removed from the atmosphere. And so these are essentially our carbon dioxide sinks.
Oh, gotcha.
And so that's one of the reasons I'm particularly interested in studying them, is understanding if we lose tidal wetlands, you might re-release that stored old carbon. So what we're really interested in looking at is, as sea levels rise, are our marshes keeping pace? And so we have the infrastructure and equipment here to try to address that question.
The level of vulnerability that we see here in Miami-Dade County scares me. And the hurricane readiness is not there.
More than 5.6 million Floridians have been ordered to evacuate. If you've been ordered to evacuate, you need to leave now. Do not wait. Evacuate.
Evacuating from Miami-Dade County, you know the shape of Florida. So we're all heading on the same arteries out of town. And we're heading away from Miami-Dade to Orlando, which ends up being where the hurricane was heading. So people had to start going west and east and sort of shimmying. So it was a bit of a nightmare. And then those of us that stayed here just kind of held on and hoped for the best. So when you looked at Hurricane Irma not hitting us and what it did to our community, businesses were closed for 2 and 3 weeks. If you are vulnerable because of your socioeconomic status and you are living paycheck to paycheck, literally, you cannot go 2 to 3 weeks without a paycheck. You cannot get your house hurricane ready.
Third move since the hurricane. So I'm doing what I can. FEMA turned me down, Red Cross turned me down. That's where I left. Presidential mandatory evacuation. We were sheltered for 2 weeks. And got done. Went back to the shelter. Too traumatic. All you hear is sirens and the first responders the whole week.
We'll use some of the oh, it's a fire!
Stomp it
it's
out.
A fireball.
No, I'm a Boy Scout. We don't get upset about things like that. We just kind of stomp it out, yes.
So what is today again?
Today again?
What is
same
today?
day?
Why is today special?
Groundhog Day.
And birthday. Whose?
Matt's. It's my birthday.
How long do you think
6
you have?
months.
And then you'll be moved in? That's great, man. Are you excited?
No, it's just a part of life. I'm not excited. I'm grateful for what I've been through in this past 5 months and the time that we've been able to sustain, and you know.
What keeps you so positive?
Faith in Mom and Dad. You know, the people we talked to today. God. Oh, by the way, Dad's 95. He's not 93. Oh, I didn't know. That's even better. You know, small things like that.
Okay, great. Yeah, that would make things easy. So, all right, 1 o'clock Thursday, and I'll touch base with you again then just to confirm everything. All right, appreciate it, Chuck. Yeah, this is my cell phone. You can reach me here.
We demand local and state electeds to protect the health and the well-being of the many. This is not sustainable. This is not inevitable. And this is not acceptable.
New York, America, where we're getting food from all over the world. And for the most part, throwing it into the landfill is kind of wasting a resource that we've used so many resources to bring into the country. For us to actually take those resources in the form of bananas, avocados, to take those resources and recycle them, keep that local, reduce the amount of trucks it takes to actually move this material around and create a resource such as compost, which is going to help us grow a more diverse variety of food in the city, we can actually reduce the environmental toll of all of this food waste that we have. The difference between majority of compost sites in the city and this compost site is that we don't use any fossil fuels, and we're the largest in the United States that runs on renewable resources, which means no fossil fuels being burned on the site, machines actually turning windrows. It's just people getting together as a community and getting this work done in the most environmentally friendly way.
One day he was calling me fossil fuel.
I like the thought of taking care of everything in your community. I try to do my part whenever I can.
So how hot did you say this gets?
It gets all the way up to 160 degrees. In the wintertime, it's the steam that brings volunteers in.
Yeah, I bet.
They're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
A site like this is very educational, and there's sites all around the world that come to study this site to see what we're doing so they can bring it back to their systems. And that really just makes it worthwhile to know that we're creating a difference not only by diverting the food scraps that we divert and turn it into a resource, but by educating people so that they can do the same thing that we're doing on their own scale. It's hard work, but what makes it worth it is the people, actually seeing the interest in the people, seeing the community that's made.
You guys out here for brunch? Is that what I hear?
This guy's got new muscles, man. I'm noticing that chest right there.
Yeah. Next time.
All right, a little to your right. Perfect.
Doing solar, it ain't easy as it look as far as the physical aspect, because you gotta be in shape. Like, if you don't exercise or anything like that, and you think you're just gonna get on the roof and pull stuff out, it ain't gonna work like that.
Mostly folks who have a lot of means are the only folks who have access to getting solar on their homes. So, I mean, there's opportunity for people everywhere to get access. The folks that we work with are most affected. $100 savings each month can help them make the rent, make their other bills. So it's a huge impact.
We are reaching out to families that are low and moderate income to provide them with renewable energy. So we're able to help them lower their energy bills by providing the no-cost solar. And we're also going back into those communities to recruit for our job training program.
So we've got a lot of folks who've got general construction experience trying to make a transition into that industry. And it's brand new, it's the future of energy. So we need to get folks trained up to get jobs and build solar across the country.
I look at everybody as a teacher in a way, because I'm trying to better myself, so I prefer just working and learning as much as I can and apply that knowledge into life.
What would you say to some of the youth out there that are looking for a job or maybe just graduated and aren't sure what they want to do?
I tell them first to always stick to your childhood dreams, but on the midst of that, find a good career that you can see yourself in and that you can make an impact.
Smells like chicken because I had chicken for lunch.
A lot of what Nate and I were doing as kids was just driven by pure curiosity. And then when we started doing locomotives, I think we resorted back to a lot of that fundamental childhood curiosity.
Since 2014, we have recycled over 4,000 tons of oyster shell. The oyster reefs provide a buffer and a wave break that helps protect the coastline.
We built an oyster reef, keep me with the job.
I can use gardening as a tool for bringing about little changes. A few little herbs in a pot, not going to change the world, but you can teach your children that they can make a pizza with oregano and peppers from their flower bed. They have ownership in their meals, and that's important.
We've basically taken hundreds of acres of forest and said, okay, we're going to measure every stem in here that's over the size of a pencil. And then in 5 years, we come back and measure it again. And in 5 years, we measure it again for 50 years. So it's a major project. So we've got to understand how forests work to understand how to preserve our diversity in our forests. The future of the forest of North America and New England may depend on what happens in Alabama and Georgia, because that's where the diversity is, that's where the heat tolerance is, that's where the pathogen tolerance is. It's all move in that direction.
And as we've looked back through our 43-year data set, loons tend to do less well in hot years, and they tend to do less well in wet years. And we expect those things to become more and more severe as the years go by.
And so our hope is that we can help loons adapt, modify our management techniques to allow them to continue breeding here, even if the climate is not as optimal for them.
If we can save loons, we can save a lot of other species that depend on the same clean water and quiet places.
Well, I spy game.
Yeah, it is. It's a nice spy game. Here it is. See? You're a Hemlock woolly adelgid scout now.
The whole premise of biological control is where did the pest come from? How is it regulated in its native homeland? And could we use some of those natural enemies after really careful screening to make sure they won't cause a problem when they're introduced here?
How much do they cost, you know?
Yeah, so they're about $2 a beetle. Can you believe that?
$2 for one of those things.
When that sun comes through to the break of dawn, you better grab the keys, leave the dogs at home.
And now what we do is we look for the plants at the edge of the lake in the shallow water littoral zone and check to make sure they're the ones that we expect to find here.
What kind of plants are you not expecting that you would want to look out for?
The primary one is Eurasian water milfoil. It takes off so strongly that it can take over a lake, and when it decomposes, it eats up oxygen and is hard on the whole ecosystem. I think he's wondering what we're doing, but he's checked us out and decided we're okay. Oh, he's
everywhere.
One of the first things that I have to inform people about when they want to learn about cranberries is that we don't grow them in water. They are actually grown on dry land. We use water for frost protection, we use water for winter protection, and we flood for harvesting.
Typically, harvest began in early or mid-September, and now harvest is starting later. So that's being driven by the change of the climate, temperatures, so the fruit is not ripening quite as early as it used to. And as a result, the growers are pushing their harvest off later in the year. So this particular weekend used to be a period when many of the growers shut down their operations. That has changed now, and now this is peak harvest season. So as a result, their harvest gets thrown off schedule.
One of the nuances with the cranberry industry and why climate change is so important for us is the fact that cranberries are a perennial crop. So it's not as easy to change what we have in the ground as it might be for a potato grower, where they could put in a new crop each year. So your return on investment is quite long term. It makes us more constrained and less able to adapt.
Woo.
Yeah. not me. I gotta have mine processed.
Oh,
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. So some of the changes in the weather patterns that are coming quickly to our attention are rainfall in shorter time periods. Either too much water, too little water, coming at wrong times. So we'll be going longer times without rainfall, which is actually what's happening this year.
We have warmer nights during the summer. Our rivers flood much more often now. The rainfall is much more intense.
This year, we had 11 inches of rain in May and a little over 1 inch of rain in June. And so we went from extremely wet, so wet that we literally couldn't grow grass, to no rain and extremely dry within 30 days.
We built our agricultural systems across the Midwest on reliable summer rainfall, and our rainfall is becoming less reliable.
Our moisture levels seem to be rising. Our temperatures are definitely rising. When I was a kid, if we made it till the 1st of September without a frost, that was a pretty good year. And now, we're pretty surprised if we see frost before like the 15th or 20th of September. So we've gained, that kind of 2 to 3 weeks, I think most people will agree on. And that makes all the difference in the world for growing different crops.
In the last 6 years, we've had 2 spring freezes that wound up damaging our fruit crops. If your apple trees are in bloom, they become less and less cold tolerant. And then if you have a cold snap around that time, you can lose a big portion of your crop, if not your whole crop.
So this year, we had some unseasonably warm weather, followed by very cold weather, which shut everything down for a week. Then it heats back up, but we have no rain. The next week we get hail, and that was May. Well, we had several crop failures, and the fruit was scarred. And so people had their insurance company out there calling it the end of the year.
It's when you get the warm springs in April, you get 380-degree days. It totally screws you for the whole season. If you get the 4 inches or 8 inches of rain in the middle of your growing season when your flowers are there or your berries, and it floods the place, and you're going to lose the crop. So you don't lose your paycheck for this week. You lose your paycheck for the entire year. So we're trying to grow cranberries, and it's getting harder, and climate change is not helping us.
Every part of the industry is trying to adapt and to make it so we can survive as temperatures change and the climate changes. Those are important factors that we're going to have to deal with. Fortunately, agriculture can play a huge role in reversing that trend. We have the equipment and the chemistry and the knowledge and education and experience now to really initiate what we call the soil health movement and the soil health initiative. And, that's taking care of the land by not disturbing it, using 100% no-till, having continuous cover to anchor the ground and protect the ground. It's rained just day after day after day this spring, and so it takes a lot to hold the soil in place. Then we have a living root system all the time on our farms. It's a challenge because you're changing over from a mechanical system of working the soil in the fall and working in the spring and planting it. And that's probably what their grandfather did and their dads did, and now they're growing the best crops ever. But it's really degrading the soils, and that's not ever going to last because we have to build our soils up. So we oftentimes talk about sustainability, but for me, that's not good enough. I want to build my soils back, and I want to build them up. And by sequestering carbon dioxide out of the air and through photosynthesis, we use the energy of the sun to put all that energy back into our soils. And the soils are really this living body, just like our own bodies, that can utilize all that energy and make it so it's a better medium for growing crops.
Hey, Ray, Cody here. Our wheel fell off. Your wheel fell off? Yeah, our front wheel fell off. All right, we're getting the work truck. We'll be there right away.
No way.
They said
said they got spare. If it's a full-size spare. Yeah, it's full-size. They no problem.
That's a bad lug nut.
Okay.
I'd get that replaced. That one's cracked. So you got 2 bad lug nuts. This one will be the next one to go.
What are you doing? Excellent spot for a breakdown. We got smoke coming out of the air filter.
I honestly don't know at first if we wanted to continue. There was a lot of uncertainty. We had put so much time, money, and effort into the project up to that point. It was really hard for us to see a way forward and kind of repeat everything for the second half of that all.
Hi, how you doing? Good. Thank you so much for coming down.
After things kind of settled and we thought about it, we knew we had to get back on the road at all costs.
So we're currently headed to Indianapolis from Ohio to test drive a new van and hopefully, potentially purchase. It's a Ford Transit, high roof, so we can stand inside. It's going to be a lot larger of a space. We're very excited about that. But as usual, rest in peace, StarCraft. We'll miss you forever.
Yeah, baby. This baby's packing a 3.6 EcoBoost engine. This model comes with pre-greased, quiet closing door, like our previous model. So fudged. You're gonna be here, I'm gonna be here.
Oh yeah. It's yeah. So I don't know about your arms, but like that's plenty of room for the kitchen.
There is no word for natural resources in our language. What we say is Wenje bimat diziang, or everything from where we get life.
I like that a lot better than natural resources.
Yeah, I mean, it's a, like I said, it's a lot more in-depth, intuitive than, you know, categorizing or labeling something, right? It's recognizing that the environment and everything that we get and what we subsist from literally is life-giving to us. My name is Dylan Bijakins Jennings. I am a Bad River Tribal member and also a Tribal Council member for the Bad River Band of Lake Superior, Ojibwe. This time of the year, our community members are making their way out to the Bad River Sloughs to harvest manoomin, to feed their families, to feed our community. It's a process that has been happening here for a really long time. Our elders and our knowledge holders tell the story a lot better than I can. You know, we started out on the East Coast and we followed a prophecy that told us to travel to the place where food grew on water. And so our people traveled to these areas here within the Great Lakes region, found manoomin, wild rice, and have settled here ever since. To be able to harvest the very food or the very spiritual entity that led our people to where we are today, to be able to harvest those same foods that our ancestors reserved for us through the signing of those treaties, to harvest those remnant pieces of what our ancestors felt for us and the love that they put towards and sent off into the future is a very overwhelming, deeply emotional and spiritual feeling. And any kind of impacts to those resources and those things that, like I said, Wenji Bimontazian, that give us life, would be very detrimental and harmful, damaging to our people, to our way of life, because we subsist and we rely upon it so very much. As the manoomin right now is ready to fall and be harvested out there in the sloughs, extreme weather events are of extreme concern right now. Things that we look at are water levels, especially with climate extremes, flooding and whatnot.
Well, a lot of our streams here in Montana are snowmelt driven. You know, one impact of climate change that we're seeing most heavily is this change to the hydrologic cycle, where that snow is melting sooner in the season and it's running off the landscape quicker, and it's leaving less water available in late summer when trout really need it and when other species really need it. And so the big change that they're seeing over time is huge declines across the west in snowpack levels, and then this earlier runoff. And that's causing a lot of issues for trout, because once that water drops low and it gets super hot, that's when those water temperatures increase. You know, trout get stressed when the water gets warm. Yeah, that's a nice one. And once it gets up to about 68 degrees or 70 degrees, trout, you know, start to feel the heat, and they get stressed and they can, you know, die more easily, especially if you're handling them and fighting them and reeling them in. You know, we're lucky enough to be out here today on a stream that stays pretty cool and throughout the summer, but on a lot of our main rivers, our wildlife management agency has to shut them down for parts of the day when it's super hot. That's really going to have an effect on outdoor recreation. And in Montana, outdoor recreation is one of the top economic drivers of the state.
The ski industry has many challenges. I mean, COVID-19 is just a bump in a log right now, because we know it's short term. The long-term issues are the global climate crisis that we're seeing, and we're really seeing the effects of that, the impact of that right now. What we can do is find solutions to the symptoms of the problems. The symptoms for the ski area are shorter, more compact winter seasons. We combat that with snowmaking. The other challenge that every ski area goes through is, what do you do with this place in the summertime? And nothing really worked until we imported some cool activities from Europe, like the mountain coaster, like summer tubing, and some of these other activities to the United States, and have proven to be really significant to help us kind of get that second season in.
They're going up high.
This summer we had 2 chairlifts open for mountain biking, and as I mentioned before, we have expanding mountain bike trails and mountain bike programming. When you do make money as a nonprofit, you can reinvest it, and that's exactly what we've done here. We have transformed this place over the last 4 years from a struggling 1-season ski area to a 4-season mountain recreation area.
For anyone who comes and visits the ocean and has the ability just to experience such an amazing place, that really drives sort of this ethic of wanting to protect it. Certain places, like the ocean or our coastlines, these should be public resources. They should not be privatized, and no one should be able to exclude other people from visiting the coastline. So it's really in that spirit that Surfrider fights for beach access. You know, we want to make sure that everyone has the ability to visit the beach, to enjoy these special places, and really stand up for the protection of public resources. As sea levels rise, we can do shoreline planning. You know, we can make sure that new development or redevelopment is appropriately set back from the coast. Not only will that allow our beaches to naturally migrate inland, it'll also help protect coastal communities from extreme weather events and other impacts from climate change.
Wherever you're from, your water doesn't always start in your state. And so it does behoove you to think about where it's coming from, figure out what other states' issues are actually your issues.
More or less, the mission is to connect Wyoming's communities to their waterways through experience-based river trips, facilitating trips with those people that are kind of geared to meeting people where they're at, but with a river setting.
The water we're floating on is the water we drink. Having that conversation, it's my hope, plants the seed that when they go home, they're curious about their water, their watershed. How is it a finite resource? Wyoming's a headwater state. So all the water here is flowing out of Wyoming, through Wyoming towns, and then to other states. Snowpack, for instance, that directly affects how much water is going into the Colorado River, because it starts in Wyoming at the Green River, in these mountains, starts here, and then flows across the border into the Colorado. And so for an already strained water system, to have that much less water potentially, I think it's a very real issue that people need to think about, and trying to help people realize that they are directly connected to mountains, even if they live on a plain somewhere.
And it's people who are on the margins, who never engage and try to make a difference in the world that are. Is that cat get out?
Right here.
Wow. There are a couple of key elements to successful social problem solving. One is science. If you don't know what the problem is, and you don't understand what the consequences of potential solutions are, it's hard to make an informed decision, which means we spend a little bit of time and a little bit of money studying the problem. Secondly, we need policymakers who are educated about those issues. So we need politicians who are willing to be educated. Third, we need democratic participation, because if decision makers can make those decisions insulated from the consequences of that and from engaging with the public and their needs and values, then you often get bad decision making. And when you've got the three of those working together in tandem, you can move forward, you can make progress, you can begin to solve problems.
Hell yeah, man. We're in the canyon, folks. We did it. Straight from the Colorado River.
What's particular about Southern Nevada is that we have a limited amount of water that we're allowed to access from the Colorado River. And we share the Colorado River with 6 other states in the country of Mexico. And each of those states and the country of Mexico are entitled to specific quantities of water in order to meet their state's water needs. We know that climate change means we're going to have to provide more water to more people, but with less water to provide.
If you have a scarcity problem, an imbalance between supply and demand, you've got two ways of dealing with that. One is to increase the supply. The other is to manage the demand. Demand management is actually much cheaper, but it's much harder because it requires that you modify human behavior, that you tell consumers that they need to be more careful about how they're consuming.
So we make water conservation relatively easy. Focus on your outdoor water use, the water we only get to use once. And we know it's been supported by Southern Nevadans because they are participating in it. Since the turn of the century, our community has grown by more than 40%. But our consumption of water from the Colorado River has decreased by about 30%. So we are supplying more people with less water today than we did in the year 2000.
In the last 55 years of working and being on the land every day, I definitely see changes happening. So it's a real balancing act as to what we have out on the landscape. The whole wildlife, right down to the rabbit or the mice, we're all dependent on this. What we can do to protect it, not just guess at what we're protecting, but have the science behind it that is guiding us in that direction, I think is extremely important. I feel a strong responsibility to this landscape. I feel a responsibility to do everything I can to preserve it for the future.
What is true about deserts is that it can be harder to see some of their spectacularness because it can be small or hidden or specialized in a way that can make it not as dramatic and in our face. But deserts are unbelievable ecosystems with organisms that have evolved to handle our harshest conditions. And that makes them so cool to look at, to think about, to study. I would say if you spend some time in deserts and you really get to know them, there's no way you're gonna walk away and not think they're awesome.
Heck yeah.
All right. Watch where we're walking to make sure we don't accidentally walk on our subjects. You can see the biological soil crusts that look like scorched earth in the middle of the plot. They're black and bumpy, different kinds of organisms living there. What we're learning from experiments like this one is that climate change is also a threat to biocrust. We're seeing that our experimental manipulations of temperature and precipitation are really affecting biocrust communities and the services they provide. One of the most important things that we think they do is to stabilize soils. So biocrusts exude this sticky sugar glue into the mineral soil and hold those particles together, meaning that erosion goes way down, dust goes way down. We also know that biocrusts are taking in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, sequestering that carbon into that surface layer of soil. So if we look here and we think, oh, this is just soil, no biocrust, it's actually totally biocrust. You can see it holding the soil together, and if you look closely, you can see the small filaments that hold the mineral soil together. One of the things that's interesting about biocrust is that it's only active when wet, and here in the desert, it doesn't get to be wet that often, so when it does get wet, it likes to activate immediately. So what we'll do is pour some water on this moss. You can see it's real spiky, feels dry, wouldn't want to rest your head there. And then we'll pour some water. And immediately you can see it starts to puff up. And actually it's not only swelling with the water, but the moss is unfurling its leaves to the sun to be able to photosynthesize. You can see that green color coming immediately, and it starts to become so fuzzy and soft. So we have a lot of uses for the landscapes around here. We mountain bike, we ride 4x4s, we have oil and gas development, we have livestock grazing. All of those uses have effects on the landscape. And understanding those effects and educating people of the consequences of different actions is all part of the larger effort to use the lands, but to do the best we can to protect them at the same time.
What's up, everybody? It's Cody and Nate out here in Wyoming.
doing some on-the-road repairs. As Nate just said, it's about the spices, not the wood. Stay tuned for the final product. Here is the finished product. Now the Natrix will load with spices.
Oh, we got the double width. That's perfect.
The concern is that we have two really good topics in Wisconsin and Michigan, and they're both pretty time sensitive based on the seasons because they're farming. We would be hitting all these major mountain states like September into October, and that's just not ideal with the onset of winter.
It is September 7th, 2020 in Jackson, Wyoming. It was 70 degrees earlier today, maybe even 80.
Now it's 30.
I think I'll have you like stand right here as a marker. And I'll just pull forward a little bit and punch it back to here. And that way I just know when to turn.
Look at this machine.
You know, from the very beginning, the community has really supported this whole idea, really seeing the importance of having local food sources. And here in Jackson, in Wyoming, we only have like a 3-month growing season. So to be able to provide 365 days a year fresh produce to the community has just really been embraced by everybody.
At Vertical Harvest, on 1/10 of an acre, we grow the equivalent of 10 acres worth of food. And we employ 40 people, 20 of which have some form of physical and intellectual disability. We like to say that we work in a completely naturally supported, inclusive environment. Diversity of abilities within that environment is really important to us. So we utilize a tool called customized employment, where we customize the job to the individual and the individual to the job. And what that does is it goes beyond disability and really focuses on people's abilities. And I think the most important thing that Vertical Harvest has accomplished is creating a culture that focuses on ability. We are able to grow a multitude of crops. But on the top floor, because of the solar gain from the south and the roof, we are able to grow vining crops, and that's quite unique in the vertical farming sphere. So we utilize as much sunlight as possible. That's also something that differentiates us. One of the biggest criticisms of vertical farming has been energy use, so we really believe in harvesting as much solar gain as possible to mitigate that. All of these things really point to creating a new way of farming that can be decentralized and also operate independently of the environment in which it exists. So we're never going to replace traditional agriculture, but vertical farming is, I think, a key supplement to creating local food systems where food is grown, processed, distributed, and consumed in the community in which it exists.
Hello.
Can I help you?
The idea is to create a farm that brings people from all kinds of backgrounds to a place where they can use direct learning and direct application of food production and housing production skills to improve the base and the foundations of their community. We need each other to make anything happen in this world. We almost can't do it in silos. And there goes one of my roosters telling me it's time to be quiet. All right, here you go, lady. Whoops. That's called a bank shot. I can't explain to you why it's so important, the benefits of learning from each other. But when we do, you can see it. It's one of those things that's really hard to do. The richness of all of our stories, the technologies that are hidden in our experiences, the things we can benefit from. Talent is not distributed unevenly. It's access and the opportunity to express it. We have done a poor job of giving each other the pathways to express ourselves. And we have made certain things look exclusive. It's the iceberg thing, I guess, right? See the 10%, but look. Because there's a lot of importance happening underneath, and we can all learn from each other, we can all share, and so forth, so on. Enough out of me.
This ecosystem provides extraordinary stability when we observe the forces that created it in the first place, which is the force of fire and intense impact of large herds of grazers.
How do I know that holistic management works? I grew up on a cattle ranch. Both sides of my family are in agriculture. How you know it works is when it's really bad. That's when it proves itself. During drought, we have greener pastures. During large rain events or wet times, you get less erosion. So the fence line is the telltale sign to the neighbor.
We can tell what enriches this landscape by walking out here and looking down. The goal is to see no bare ground. That's the goal. We impact this 10,000-year-old ecosystem in a way that increases the absorption of every drop of rain that falls. So, for every inch of rain that falls on the Farrell Ranch, we get more of it into the soil than running off. The bottom line is the way we treat this ground before the drought determines what happens during the drought. And it enables us, again, we literally absorb more moisture than ranches that aren't employing these practices. And that's a huge advantage.
Not to mention you're probably sequestering a ton of carbon.
We are. We're deepening the root systems, and that's, I've been aware of the carbon problem now for at least 30 years. And people used to look at you like you were crazy, and now it's more common to understand that we've got to do everything we can to get the carbon out of the atmosphere and back in the roots. And that's where perennial ecosystems, perennial agricultural practices really shine. I mean, we have a lot to say about this.
Should I be mindful of you, Nate, or should I just blab on? Okay. Okay.
Pretend like he's not there.
Aw, that's sad. In agriculture, you have to put inputs into the land every year. You have to put in nitrogen, you have to till the soil, you have to, manage weeds, and despite the fact that we get good crops, crops are beset with all kinds of problems like diseases and pests and so on. Here you have the prairie. Nobody's doing anything to it, and yet it has existed for millions of years, So what does the prairie have that agriculture doesn't? Perenniality and diversity. A perennial plant is one that regrows year after year, and so the tops grow up anew every year, but the root system remains alive and regrows the next year. Contrast that with something like corn or wheat. You plant it, it reproduces once, it dies. The reason that we have rich soil in prairie areas is because of the prairie itself. The deep roots of the prairie grow very large root systems. Those root systems die and turn over time. And because the ground remains embedded with roots, soil erosion is very low, and then root tips sloughing off year after year actually are broken down into organic matter and build soil. So if you really want to have an agricultural system that builds soil, not just keeps it from washing away, you have to have perennial root systems. What if you could plant an edible prairie? You have something that's building the soil, that is sequestering carbon from the atmosphere, in a way that our annuals are just not able to do. We're not out to wag fingers and say, you're a bad person for engaging in agriculture. We're trying to find a way to fix a problem that is thousands of years old, and that is the problem of widespread annual agriculture. The prairie probably would not have continued to be as extensive as it was by the time Europeans arrived if the Native Americans had not burned it and managed it themselves. In order to gather plants from the prairie, in order to help the bison, which was a major food source.
If you come along and you got a plant and the animal grazes it down to the crown, they take all the leaves off of it, which are solar panels. And that animal bites it again, and that root dies, and then that plant dies, and then it won't come back. Yeah, that animal did well with that past year, but he's not gonna do as well next year because we killed that plant. What you need to do is let that plant grow up, take 1 or 2 of the solar panels off, and then we allow it time where an animal won't come back and bite that tender leaf. So you have to take a short-term hit to get the long-term benefit, which is 1 to 2 years down the road. Once you build up that litter and you're utilizing more of your rainfall, that's what you want, is more soil, more root structure, more water retention, better water infiltration rates, more production, more everything. The water that rains here ends up in the Gulf of Mexico eventually. We got to put as much of it into the ground to recharge the aquifers. We got to keep the soil healthy. There's a lot of Great Plains that isn't farmable that you can manage your grass on and sequester some carbon. It really doesn't matter if you have sheep, cattle, or bison. You're managing the soil and the grass. That's your overall goal.
Hi, buddy. How are you today? This is one of our guard pups. He's bonding. This dog will grow to be over 100 pounds. And hi, I'm so glad to see you today. Yes, I am. You're the best dog. Yes, you are. How are you? Good to see you. These guys are tasty morsels for coyotes. And so we have to put dogs with the goats or the predation will be significant. We don't kill predators, we just try to defend against them. We want the predators to inhabit this landscape. I need you to stay here, okay? So your job is here, I know. So we'll just kind of back away slowly. Stay. I'm thinking since he couldn't get in, maybe this is all I need to do. This land earns about half of its income from its agricultural operations and about half of its income from the wind farm. This wind farm was supposed to serve, I think, 42,000 residential houses, and it has consistently produced enough electricity to serve about 60,000 houses. We had a drought here that began in 2010 and ended in 13. So 40% of this ranch didn't have enough water. Even though I had the grass, I didn't have water for livestock. So in 1 year, I had to destock this ranch by 40%. I had to discharge all employees. I worked for free to run the ranch. And that's what you have to do in severe drought. Thank God I had a wind farm, because I have to pay for this ranch. My dad had filled me with stories of the Dust Bowl, the Depression. You know, there was a terrible drought in the 50s, you know. He'd already told me there's gonna be years you're not gonna make it. I mean, it's gonna happen. That's the way nature is. She doesn't guarantee a profit. I mean, there's no reason it has to rain. What are you thinking, you know? So the stability it's given us is just extraordinary. It's been a controversy at times. It attracted a lot of negative publicity when we put it in, but that's pretty much gone away. After this wind farm was put in, a lot of my friends and neighbors said, gosh, what was all the fuss about? You know, unless you're in immediate proximity to the wind farm, it has zero effect on you. And we've proven that it had zero effect on our ecology. We went through years of testing for the greater prairie chicken. We've done it in a way that has not impacted our wildlife population. You know, the answer is, you know, a lot of people just don't want to look at them. I understand that. It's a huge change in the way the landscape looks. But you know what? I don't want to look at mountaintop removal. I don't want to look at icebergs melting. There's a lot of things. I don't want to look at California burning up as we speak. I don't want to look at that, and I am willing to make a concession here to see if we can get carbonless electricity into the grid. I understand that the machines are not carbonless. It takes a lot of extraction, a lot of fossil fuel to build those turbines. But as we put more renewable energy into the grid, we will be using less fossil fuel to create that machinery.
Will you fall for your fury?
I think once you realize that everyone has a story to tell, a perspective that's unique to them, you realize that the best way of learning something is really just going to the source and talking to the people who are experiencing that on a day-to-day basis.
Will you not stop and shake from this worry?
There are people out there that have different professions, live in different places, that put them face to face with these issues. And when you hear them talk about it, you don't need any more credibility. That's why it's undeniable for these people.
There are so many different ways to help. If you find what you're good at or what you're interested in, and you talk with your community members, then you'll find a way within your realms of interest to enact that.
And I want my kid to swim in the creek.
I mean, I think for a lot of folks who have spent decades on these rivers, the issue of climate change is very personal to them. People who are directly tied to the health of those rivers are seeing these changes and they're concerned.
Yes, now go.
If you look at some of the biggest conservation measures that have been passed, these things don't happen by accident. It's because people speak up and that they care about these resources.
Get what you can, overtake what you need.
There are so many different reasons why we need to take action on climate change, but if Surfrider can organize the surfing community and the 100+ million Americans who love the beach to bring that passion and bring that perspective to the national conversation, that's going to help us get strong climate legislation that we need.
When you're out harvesting wild rice, there's a lot of manure or wild rice that falls back into the water to reseed. You're not expected to get every single rice grain, and so that's an important part about harvesting, is that relationship of reciprocity. You know, as we're out there harvesting too, we're also kind of reseeding for future generations as well.
And I want my kid to swim in the creek.
By targeting food and job insecurity, we've exposed the talents of an underemployed population. They're leading the charge in this innovative way that has the potential of making real global impact. And so it's a real sea change of perception of what people with physical and intellectual abilities can do.
This is everybody's issue. This is everybody's problem to solve, and we don't have another minute to wait. So my sense of urgency completely drives me at some cost to my sanity and my health and my employment and other things, but that's okay. I wouldn't live it any other way.
I think we have a larger role to play than in just perpetuating a family legacy, which I'm pleased with, and I'm not ignoring that. But if it doesn't serve our larger community, then I begin to question, what are we doing here? And I think the wind farming serves that purpose as well. What are we going to leave behind? What are my great-grandchildren going to say about this? Well, I hope I've made a statement that they would be proud of.
Yeah, I want my kids to swim in the creek.
Testing the audio. Testing over here, testing there, testing over here, testing up here, testing down here. Just keep this 6 feet, please. I mean, at the end of the day, climate change isn't that big of a deal. There's climate change happening in every corner of the United States. You know, there's a lot of people out there that are dealing with climate change and they see it day to day, but to them it's not climate change. When we think about this issue as a whole, we got to think at a very small level, a local level, an individual level, and it's tough to see. A lot of these communities that are being affected, you know, most adversely are the ones that have the smallest capacity to adapt. They have the fewest resources, and they're the ones contributing to this problem the least. I think getting off of the road, there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to and a lot of things I think I'm definitely gonna miss pretty quick. Certainly, we've gotten great topics for every state, but there are many, many more that we weren't able to get to that I know we would have liked to film. There's a lot of good stories out there that need to be told, and so definitely not going to forget about those.